Reading books is not a very popular habit in Zambian society. And hence, the phrase that there is no reading culture in Zambia. And we have come to accept this stigma with a great deal of pride. And yet, there is an adage which says that reading maketh a man. When you travel to many of the Western countries, there are two important institutions that you find, or indeed buildings. It is libraries and also museums. These two structures are an embodiment of the knowledge and the culture of these societies. They give them the identity that they have. They give the identity to the past generations, the present generations, and those generations to come. So they cherish these buildings. They actually hold these institutions as sacred in their societies. One of the things that really struck me when I was appointed Minister of Justice in 2012, and I became a regular visitor to State House, was to find that there is no library at State House. And there are no libraries in any of our ministries. So I asked myself a question: how does the President make critical decisions about our country? How do ministers make decisions about our country in the absence of any books available in the ministry or reference material? When I was head of the legal department at Lusaka City Council in the 80s and 90s, I did establish a library in the department. Unfortunately, this library was disbanded immediately I left the council. Nobody saw its importance for the department or even the institution itself. As far as everybody was concerned, I was just wasting my time. So the issue of reference material and the issue of reading has been part of my life. When I arrived at the University of Zambia as an undergraduate in 1977, one of the prominent buildings that struck me, or structure that struck me at UNZA, was its library. I'd never seen a collection of so many books in one place before. And the University of Zambia library became my very popular spot to visit during my student days. I spent long hours there to read. Not only law books, not only cases, but I read every material that I could lay my hands on and I thought I could understand in the field of social science. And from that time onwards, I became an avid reader. I fell in love with the books. I've myself built a library over time because I've come to believe that books are important. They are important for knowledge, and they are important for other things. There is a saying that knowledge is power. But knowledge is not only power, knowledge is also security. When you acquire knowledge, you actually acquire security. Knowledge gives you confidence. Knowledge ramps up your self-esteem. Let me tell you what I've just come to discover from my extensive reading. I've come to realize that almost 50% of what I learned at primary school, secondary school, and university was actually not knowledge, but information. What I was being given by my teachers and lecturers was not knowledge at all. It was just information. For example, I was informed that David Livingstone discovered the Victoria Falls. I was also informed in the law school that everybody is equal before the law. I was also informed that democracy is ruled by the majority. But of course, I later discovered that all this information was wrong. David Livingstone didn't discover the Victoria Falls because there were indigenous people that were already there by the time the man arrived. I discovered that not everybody is equal before the law, because the indigent, the poor of our society, do not have the same opportunity before the law as the rich. It is also not true that democracy is ruled by the majority, because going by the statistics of voters every 5 years in Zambia and in many countries, those who vote are actually in the minority. In Zambia, for example, in the 2021 elections, we had something like 5.8 million voters. Only 3 million voted. How can that be a rule by the majority? 3 million out of Zambia's population of 20 million put the government in place. And yet, in civics, in political science, we are still being informed that democracy is ruled by the majority. Now, the difference between information and knowledge is that information doesn't have to be true, like I've just illustrated. Information does not need to be true, but knowledge has to be true. And therefore, if you want to seek the truth, seek knowledge. If you want to seek the truth, seek knowledge. And what knowledge does also is that it makes you begin to question everything that you are taught. So Frantz Fanon's soliloquy, "Oh, my body, make me always a man who questions," becomes your battle cry. Everything that you come across by way of information, the first thing that you do is question it. Is this true? Because not everything that you receive by way of information is actually true. This has given me some disappointment that in fact all the collection of certificates that I have in my hands does not reflect the amount of knowledge that I have. Instead, it simply reflects the information that I've received over the years. I'm currently reading 2 books in my continued search for knowledge. One of the books that I'm reading is by a writer that I recently discovered. His name is Ken Follett, and he has written a series of fiction books but based on research. The one that I'm reading now is entitled The Evening and the Morning. This is a book where Follett is giving a story of England after the Dark Ages, after the fall of the Roman Empire. And England was facing adversity from the Welsh and the Vikings. England was poor. The Romans had walked away with their technology. People were starving. People didn't have food. They didn't have water. And then I said to myself, oh my God, so there was a time when the London that we admire today was poor. There was a time when the London that we admire today was populated by people who could not afford a meal, who were sleeping on the bare ground. And then I came to realize that Britain is what it is today because of the hard work of its citizens. Isn't that a lesson for all of us? I think it is. Should we continue thinking that we're consigned to poverty? No. I think we can do what the English people did after the Dark Ages and achieve what they have achieved and even more. The second book that I'm reading is entitled Original Sin. This is a book written by Jack Tapper and his colleague Lewis Thompson. They have written a book about the end of the Biden era. A book which gives us an insight of what was going on behind the curtains during the Biden administration, just before Joe Biden withdrew from the race in the 2024 elections. The two authors explore the question of the relevance of the president's inner circle and how they can direct or misdirect the president. From the synopsis of this book, the theme of the two authors is that the inner circle around Joe Biden withheld the information from him. Or when they decided to give him the information, they gave him what he wanted to hear. In the first few pages of the book, the authors picked a line from William Shakespeare's King Lear. And the line reads, "They told me that I was everything. It is a lie. I am not argue-proof." This line is a lamentation by King Lear in William Shakespeare's play. King Lear was being told by those around him that he was everything, that he was infallible, that he was immutable, only for him to come and discover that what the inner circle told him was not true, because he succumbed to a disease at the time which was very close to malaria. And then the man said, "Oh, so what I've been told, that I'm everything, that nothing can happen to me, was not true." Isn't that a lesson for every leader in the world? Isn't that a good lesson that all of us should follow as we choose the men and women around us when in power? I therefore recommend these two books, and I'll continue making these recommendations as we go along. I myself read an average of 3 books at any one go. And I read a minimum of 2. Medical research has shown that reading is good for your health. It has shown that reading improves your mental agility and your memory. Medical science has also shown that reading rejuvenates the cells in your brain. It regenerates them and gives them rejuvenation so that your brain can work better even as you are aging. Reading is also good for your cognitive senses. It enhances or slows down. It slows down your cognitive senses as they wear out due to old age. So reading has an aspect of good health for you. So from whichever angle you want to look at it, reading is good for enhancing your confidence. Reading is also good for enhancing your good health. I therefore recommend to those who still believe that they must continue with the culture of not reading, that you are doing yourself a disservice. And knowledge, however much you accumulate, can never be poisonous anyway. It can only be for your own good. I end with one of my quotes, which says, "Yearn for knowledge and not riches, because the latter only gives you status and not respect." If you have found this video helpful, please do subscribe and let me have your comments. Thank you.